Post office counters like this one here in London are a lifeline for our rural communities, the only place you can do most of the things you have to do when it comes to proving who you are. You might say a great use case for the government's new plans around digital ID. So I've been out in North Norfolk asking the question, what do you think about digital ID? Would it help you, or is this something which you're scared of or you're really concerned about?
Carrying around documents and things like that would be easier because you have to produce paper documents to things. Digital ID would be much safer.
If you want digital ID, I've got my driving licence.
I have concerns that the state may have too much information, and that may be a bad thing.
When you look how some of the stuff has got leaked out, then I think that could be a problem.
Yeah.
If it's not going to make any difference, then it is just another IT project and comes out of our pockets.
The security is crazy. No government is able to maintain security over that amount of information about individuals.
At the end of the day, we have so many types of ID. It just seems a good idea to bring it all together.
I think it's going to be really difficult because our elderly residents don't have passports, ID with, their photos on, and they're really going to struggle to make those phone calls for banks, things like that. They can't recall these things, so I think they're going to find it really extremely hard.
Well, you heard a range of views there, some strongly supportive, some firmly against, and some, frankly, quite ambivalent. Well, joining me today is my friend and colleague Rachel Gilmour, and I know for sure she will have some strong opinions on this subject. Rachel, this digital ID card thing, is this something we should be worried about, or is it a storm in a teacup?
I don't think it's either. I think it's something that governments have tried before. I just don't understand why they want to do it now. We're massively in debt. We need to see economic growth. Why would you want to spend billions of pounds on an ID card when we've effectively got ID cards for everything anyway? I just don't understand it. And as a Liberal, I don't like it, and I don't see the point, and neither do my constituents.
So, I guess I can't help but think that the timing of this coincides with a massive furore over immigration. Let's start there, shall we? Do you think it's going to solve the illegal immigration crisis if we have ID cards in the UK?
Absolutely not.
Why? Yes, you seem very, very clear about that.
Hang on a minute. Everybody has an ID card, and suddenly the idea is that you're going to be able to tell whether somebody has come over in a small boat as either a genuine asylum seeker or an economic migrant. Why is the Labour government going down this route? Why are they taking on the cardigans of reform? They don't need to. They should have their own values.
So you really think this has been a response to the issue of immigration raising its head?
Well, that's what they're saying. I don't know. I don't sit in a policy unit in Number 10 for obvious reasons. I just think it's wrong anyway in terms of civil liberties. But if this is the Labour government's response to illegal immigration, it's just madness.
Aside from the principle, which I think you're pretty clearly opposed to, is there an operational risk here? Is it just one of those things that if the government tries it, it's bound to fail?
No. To be fair to government, there is a problem when governments introduce things. They will go out to tender. They will be convinced by the companies who will be able to say to them, we can do this and we can do that. And you're right. Universally, things have gone wrong. But I go back to my central point. Why bother? We've got NHS identification. We've got credit cards. We've got bus passes. We've got our Tesco cards. We've got our Lidl Plus cards. What's the point? They already have so much information about us. I don't know about you, but, my constituency, it's riddled with poverty, really rural deprivation. And to my constituents, the idea of spending £21 billion on an ID card system when they need GPs, they need dentists, they need local transport, they need best schools, they need people to look after their relatives who have dementia. It's if you are a really caring government, this is the last thing you do.
I get the point you make very clearly about priorities and costs, and it's pretty difficult because I'm in a rural constituency like you.
Yeah.
Most of my adult life has been, either in recession or in economic crisis, and there hasn't been enough money to go around. But I'm also conscious that, like, the horse has bolted. You mentioned it yourself. We've got an NHS number, we've got a loyalty card number at Lidl, we've got everything in between. They know who we are, right? So there are parts of day-to-day life that are quite clunky and difficult because you can't just get out one ID card and log in or prove who you are and get something done. Is there not an argument to say this could really help people get through things more easily?
I genuinely, as a liberal, don't understand the obsession. And I go back to the economics. We know that this Labour government, for all its failings, are going to be judged on three things. They're going to be judged on their ability to reform the NHS.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be judged on their ability to support education across the country, and particularly on SEND education. And they're going to be judged on their ability for economic growth.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't have any confidence in the government's ability. Just one of our colleagues last week, Royal Savage, her Prime Minister's question was scuppered because somebody went into number 10 with her Prime Minister's question in a transparent plastic folder.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, do I have any confidence in any government's ability to keep people's private information private, the answer is, even at the base level, no, I do not.
Well, you raise an interesting point because before the announcement, there was sort of relatively slight majority support in the public for the idea of ID. And as soon as the government announced it, that slumped by about a third.
Well, you know why that is?
Why?
Because the confidence in the Labour government has slumped.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, to tell you the truth about that, I'm very sad about that because, I'm slightly older than you and I've lived through Labour and Conservative governments. I particularly lived through Margaret Thatcher's government, which I would describe as the bleakest days of the 20th century for my generation. And I was really hoping for something better from Labour.
Yeah.
I believed in the Obama mantra, hope, change. And it really upsets me, genuinely, that we haven't seen that hope and we haven't seen that change.
Yeah.
And I see this project as very much part of that lack of insight into actually what our country and my constituents need. Don't spend £21 billion on cards that we don't need.
Yeah.
Spend a tenth of that in my constituency.
Yeah.
Give me more doctors. Give me better schools. Give me dentists. Give me more SEND teachers.
Yeah.
Take my people out of poverty. Put them in houses that they can afford.
And ID cards are not going to help any of those objectives. Yeah. No, I think that's a really compelling argument. So let's sort of, I don't know, let's imagine that there are a couple of things that we could do better in a future where those things have been addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Is this principal opposition on your part? Because I sort of went into this whole argument, I think probably principally opposed to it, being very suspicious of the state control, kind of classic liberal stuff. But does it not make some sense to know who's in the country? We don't even know, as people cross our ports and our borders, we're not even checking with the status of British citizens and working out if they're still resident here or have moved overseas. Like, does it not make sense? Put it this way, someone came to my surgery this morning and they spent 16 years trying to persuade government departments that they are not a criminal of the same name on the other side of the country. You're watching Politics Unchained. If you're interested in following future episodes, don't forget to click the subscribe button. Do post your comments or email us to tell us what you think about today's discussion. And really simple things you'd have thought would just be fixable are not fixable, because even with the national insurance number, there is no national insurance number database that you can go and find the error in and correct, and everything else will be corrected from it. Doesn't it make sense administratively just to have some sort of forgive me for using the phrase, some sort of master list of who the constituents, who the citizens in the country are, that can be used to solve that sort of problem? Or
but you've just said it yourself. You had one constituent who came to you this morning.
Okay, yeah.
I had a constituent who came to me on Saturday, and it's the first case of this kind that I've ever come across. And her daughter had disappeared. But I would have to say, as a Liberal, which I have been all my life since I was 17, I don't like this kind of control. We have it in the preamble to our Constitution. We recognise individualism. We recognise freedom. We recognise the right to be the people that we are. And we use a very special verb in our Constitution. We use the verb exist.
Yeah.
Not to be or allowed to be, exist. And if I went to my constituents and said to them in a poll, okay, £21 billion, we can have a tenth of that in Tiverton and Minehead. What would you rather spend it on?
Yeah.
ID cards or an extra few doctors?
Yeah.
More buses, more dementia care.
Yeah.
More carers, more nurses, more doctors, more social housing, never mind affordable housing, more social housing, better schools for your children, more compassion and love in our community and the way we deliver services. All I care about is them. And anything that diverts me from that cause and looking after them, I will never ever vote.
And you're a dedicated constituency MP and a true Liberal. I totally get that. But do you not think that people should have the right, if they want to use a system to identify themselves that's more convenient than having to bring all those other documents together every time?
That'll cost even more money, won't it?
I'm not sure it necessarily has to. I mean, I'm thinking, the vaccine pass was quite useful. That didn't involve creating some sort of ghastly authoritarian list. But if people wanted to get the NHS app on their phone and show a QR code that confirmed that they'd been vaccinated, that was quite convenient. Is there not an argument to say
the NHS vaccine app on your phone?
Yeah.
In my constituency, having a phone connection is a total luxury.
And mine is exactly the same. So, from the people that I went and spoke to last week, a lot of laughter about the idea that this was even remotely technically possible.
And the demographics are I have the oldest population.
Oh, I'd fight you for that. I think I do. I've certainly got the highest proportion of 90-plus-year-olds in the country.
They don't have computers.
No, we have very similar issues. And I think, the government has already relented. I mean, I was in the Bill Committee on the Data Use and Access Bill and raised these exact points around the overall principle of digital ID verification, not government ID verification, but just the ID verification you use to get an electricity company to set you up with an electricity connection or pay your gas bill.
If you buy a kettle, and you actually don't have the guarantee because it has to come through.
Yeah, absolutely. So I raised it with the minister, who was absolutely clear that there would always be an alternative option. You wouldn't be forced for any reason to have to use digital ID, and that was barely a few weeks ago. And here we are with talk around digital ID.
I just asked myself, why the volte-face? Why?
Yeah.
Why? Where is the impetus?
But let me suggest that there might be some decent use cases for this. A bit like the vaccine status on the app, which didn't force everybody to get vaccinated, and didn't force everybody who'd been vaccinated to use the app to prove they had been. But it was convenient for people who just wanted to get through a queue, get to the front and get in somewhere, or be able to prove other status in a way that suited them. Are we not cutting off their ability to get on with life more smoothly and easily? With all the points you've made about older populations, and I notice the government has climbed down a bit already on that issue, because frankly, to imagine my constituency being forced to use digital ID is laughable. I mean, people laughed when we asked them about this on the streets in North Norfolk. So all that to one side. Is it not about convenience at some level, the opportunity here? If it could be done in a trustworthy way, in a secure way, in a cheap way, just a way people could choose to use.
I think we've established that it can't be done on all those three criteria.
What?
But you will remember, I think, when you were possibly learning how to be a Liberal. I don't need to be patronising. There was this chap called Jeremy Bentham.
Yeah, right.
And he said, the greatest benefit for the greatest number.
Yeah.
And the greatest number does not exclude those who cannot benefit.
But we do things all the time that only help some people. So are you really saying we shouldn't do any form of digital ID scheme at all, even if it's voluntary, even if it's optional?
Well, in which case, what's the point? This is called a national ID card.
Yeah.
If you're now redefining it to say that it's voluntary and it's individual, we're not talking about the same
But if
thing.
we were talking about, I'm just trying to find out where your kind of flaw is for this. So if we were talking about that, if we allowed people the option
Well, what's the point then? It's not a national ID card, is it?
well, it becomes an easier, more digitally friendly way of proving who you are.
But if something is called a national ID card,
And I'm saying let's part
it has to be national.
Yeah.
And if you're saying it's an opt-out system and it's this, that, and the other, it's not national. So why spend £21 billion on it? And why take money out of my NHS, my integrated care boards, my dentists, my schools, my colleges, my transport links, my buses, my trains, which makes my constituency in West Somerset one of the poorest in the country? Come on, mate. You're a Liberal like me.
Yeah.
Let's get our priorities right.
And that I can't argue with. But I think there is my personal belief, and I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Liberal as well. And so my first reaction to this was very, very concerned. But let's drop the national bit of it, because I agree with you that that's got all the wrong connotations. And forcing people to do something is not only against my principles.
Well, you use the word MasterCard.
Well, master list.
Master list.
I mean, I guess I just think the horse has bolted on that already, but that's a separate argument. I sort of think that to get any scheme off the ground at all to do with data for the citizen, whether that's medical data and the ability to move it from one doctor's surgery to another, or just data that means you can log into the government website, you only need one username and password. Like on the other end of the spectrum from the national ID card scheme, just getting that stuff to work is difficult enough. And that's where we should be starting. So I suppose I'm looking at it from the other point of view, which says if we got the government competently to run an app about bins that let people find out when their bins are being collected, that feels like a good step in the right direction. Like if we all felt comfortable sharing our names, email addresses, and what we got in return was reliable information about our bins.
You tell that to my constituents in Winsford, in Withypool, in Exford, in Oakford. They have to literally drive, if they've got a car, to get a phone connection.
Yeah.
They can't run. This is pie in the sky. Until the government sorts out that final 5%
of rural coverage for phone signal. Totally agree. Yeah.
This is for the birds.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point as well. But could you not imagine just a whole different way of approaching this? So various things have been done really quickly in the past couple of decades because of new incentives. So we got vaccines developed at record speed when the pandemic, commercial space flight took a leap forward of around 30 years in the space of about 5, because somebody said, I'll give $100 million to the winning team that can design an answer to this problem. And dozens of teams put in, some of them even raised money in order to put in their submission. And we got some really credible, plausible, unsuccessful commercial spaceflight, whether you think commercial spaceflight is a good idea or not. But that's quite an effective way of getting technology that works, rather than the countless projects that you talked about earlier where government has spent hundreds of millions of pounds and it's not worked. And it might even be a way of getting something that works without it colossally eating into the cost of doing those things that really matter to us in our communities.
I'm an old bird. I am proud to be an old Devonian Somerset bird. I've been a Liberal all my life. And it might be what my constituents need in 20 or 30 years' time.
Yeah.
I've got the highest elderly population in the country.
I would absolutely challenge you to a fight over this.
Let's do it. But not now. As I've told you, I've got the lowest social mobility rates in the country.
That I don't doubt. Yeah.
We have fewer dentists in West Somerset than there is anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
My constituents would be quite right to come to my constituency office with pitchforks to say, Rachel, because they don't call me Mrs. Gilmour because they're not allowed to. Rachel, don't you bloody dare. Hospitals, schools, the first ever sixth form college my constituency will ever have.
Yeah.
Dentists, people with dementia who are looked after, people who aren't living in houses with mould, people that actually aren't sleeping in their cars or living on their granny's sofa with 4 children.
Yeah.
There are so many more priorities.
Yeah.
We're all waiting for the budget next month.
Yeah.
We've been told there is no capacity. We know that Labour MPs were whipped into shape.
But do you feel the same
They were
about
told that, there was a £5 billion
deficit?
deficit.
But do you feel the same about net zero? Do you care about us investing in green technology for the same reason?
Yes, because I believe in investing in net zero because, again, in my constituency, we have lots of the abilities to do that.
Yeah.
I have loads of organisations that are already doing that. And I also know from my constituency, because we have Hinkley Point A, B and C there, I'm also campaigning for the first biggest tidal lagoon project
So it's an opportunity.
in Europe. And though that will produce jobs.
Yeah.
Ros Savage, our colleague, when she
Previous
introduced-
guest of Politics Unchained.
Yeah. When she introduced the CAM bill, there is a green revolution that can happen. And it's not all about wearing open-top sandals and not wearing
jobs,
deodorant.
it's growth. Yeah, no, I get
But
that.
it's not just jobs. It's good jobs. It's jobs that are related to technology.
Yeah.
It's jobs that are related to the future. It's not a load of wonks in Westminster saying, let's spend 21 billion pounds.
Okay, so if I could come up with a competition that gave the winning team from a British-only entry list, say, 100 million quid prize to develop and, by the way, complete a digital verification system that allowed people to prove who they were using digital means as a way of improving convenience and other benefits. That is also a driver of growth, not perhaps in your constituency or probably in mine, let's face it, but in someone's constituency, that'll be jobs, fundraising those teams. That's many, many different teams raising money in the UK to develop technology, possibly even with the ability to sell it overseas. Does that not create a reason to support something, even if it's not the national ID card scheme?
I'm not going to stand up in Parliament and say, stop technology. I'm supporting
So on that particular point,
but there is this sense of the invasiveness. We've got enough.
Yeah.
Tesco know what I spend or don't spend. If I get on a train, they know where I'm going.
Yeah. Let me be really clear with you. I totally agree with you on the priorities. Like, I'm in a rural seat, and when I was on the Data Use and Access Bill Committee, that took 7 days to debate, all sorts of legislation to do with data, and a bit to do with AI as well. And my number one goal going into that was to stand up for the digitally disadvantaged, the off-grid. Aside from your deep devotion to your constituency, which I share in mine, and I wouldn't prioritise anything that wasn't going to be about bringing more hospitals and healthcare to my rural constituency, stopping sewage flowing into our seas and rivers, improving public transport, providing opportunities for young people. And probably the closest I'd get to technology is ensuring universal coverage across all of our landmass, right? That's the most important technology priority in both of our constituencies. Let's be really clear about that. Do you think this is inevitable? And do you not see that there is some benefit to having an ability to identify yourself digitally?
As I said last week, passer les papiers is something I will not countenance, and neither will my constituents. Our liberal values is what this country really needs right now. And I look to somebody like you, and it's one of the reasons I voted for you to be the chairman of our parliamentary party. It's because I think we've got to start talking about what it means to be liberal.
Yeah.
And not with a small L, but with a big L.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for coming on my podcast.
Oh.
Well, one thing I really admire Rachel for is her steadfast commitment to what matters to her constituents in her constituency. And I am exactly the same. I can't help but feel as though we may be dealing with a little bit of a false choice here, though. I know that I've got older people in my constituency. I've got a mother who uses the internet but is not what I would call digitally confident. And yet I've also got young children who are growing up in a world that is inherently digital. And some form of ability voluntarily to identify yourself digitally, seamlessly and easily, seems like it might be inevitably part of their future, but it could also help us and other people right now. I also think that whatever it costs, whether it's tens of billions or just a few billion, it's clearly an expensive investment at a time when the country needs other priorities attending to. And that's why I think the idea of having a big prize would be a great way of harnessing the power of British technology innovation, a sector that I spent many years working in. I know we've got world-class technology teams in this country. Maybe that's the way to unlock the potential of this technology.